Hello everybody, welcome back. You are watching TTBurger Game Reviews here on YouTube and I'm your host Tony. We are back with more PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 4 game reviews and more for y'all here on this channel. And today we're on episode 305 of my game reviews here, episode 305 part 1 of One Button, again. And today we're looking at a Japanese role-playing game that had an interesting concept of being in the derelict abandoned desert when the end of the world was near and everything. And had an interesting idea here. This game was made by Idea Factory International and Compound Heart, who are known for making the high-production of Neptunia franchise, Desolate franchise, Mugen Souls, Death and Request, and more. And we have a game right here made by them, and this game was not based on the Atelier franchise, even though alchemy is in the title. And in Atelier, you play as an alchemist in each game. That's not the case here. We have Arc of Alchemist for the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. And we have a lot to talk about here, so let's get started here, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, Arc of Alchemist, developed by Compound Heart and published by Idea Factory International, aims to blend tactical combat with exploration in a desolate post-apocalyptic world. Released on the PlayStation 4, this Japanese role-playing game invites players to brave a harsh desert and uncover ancient secrets. Sounds like an interesting concept there, an interesting idea for a game. However, its ambition often falls short, struggling to deliver a compelling adventure due to numerous and technical gameplay limitations that become apparent early on. This review will delve into the sands of Arc of Alchemist to highlight where it succeeds and more often where it falters. And boy oh boy, does it falter here, ladies and gentlemen. You want to talk about disappointment? A disappointing journey into the desert's heart? As I continue here, Arc of Alchemist plunges players into the year 2121, where humanity faces extinction in a barren desert of beginnings. As Quinn Bravesford, the protagonist and pragmatic young commander, your critical mission is to lead an expedition into this unforgiving expanse to find the Great Power, a mythical relic believed to possess the energy to create new, habitable world. This daunting task carries the weight of humanity's last hope. Accompanied by a small, diverse unit of soldiers and scientists, Quinn must navigate treacherous landscapes filled with ancient ruins, battle formidable mechanical foes that guard hidden secrets, and painstakingly uncover the tragic history of their ruined world. The premise sets a compelling and urgent tone for a desperate fight for survival and a profound journey of discovery that lies ahead. But it's just too bad that with a good premise doesn't always make a good game here, people. So yeah, don't be fooled by the interesting story. Arc of Alchemist's gameplay loop primarily revolves around real-time combat encounters and exploration segments, all tied together by a central base management system. In combat, you take direct control of Quinn, who serves as your primary offensive unit, while two controlled AI companions support her with their own unique abilities. Quinn's combat process centered around her Luna Gear, a versatile device that allows her to manipulate elemental orbs, fire, water, wind, earth. These elements are not just for basic attacks, they are crucial for exploiting enemy weaknesses and for interacting with environmental puzzles. While the elemental orb system theoretically encourages strategic depth in enabling guard break states on enemies and allowing for combined more potent attacks, its practical application often feels rudimentary. Many encounters tend to devolve into simply identifying the correct elemental weakness and then repeatedly spamming the specific attack over and over and over. The tactical potential of the system rarely shines through common encounters, and even against more challenging boss battles, the patterns can be predictable, and they become so predictable you love scratching your head wondering, this is what I have to do? A significant consistent drawback to the combat experience is the companion AI. Your allies frequently struggle with effective positioning, often targeting the wrong enemies, or they fail to utilize their unique skills optimally without constant player micromanagement. This constant need to oversee your party members detracts significantly from the combat flow, transforming what should be dynamic engagements into a frustrating test of patience and precision. And I just love to scratch my head wondering, why do they do this? Exploration involves traversing a series of small, segmented desert maps designed to feel like distinct areas, rather than an expansive open world. Within these zones, players are tasked with collecting various resources like ore, plant materials, and salvage mechanical parts, discovering new paths, and engaging with the enemies. While some attempt to introduce unique visual themes or structures, the overall feeling of repetition is pervasive due to similar layouts and sparse, uninspired textures. Environmental puzzles which rely on the Lunar Gear's elemental abilities are scattered throughout these maps and offer brief breaks from the combat loop. However, these puzzles are generally simplistic and rarely demand much critical thinking, serving more as minor gatekeepers than generally engaging challenges. The base camp acts as the expedition's central hub, offering essential functionalities for upgrading Quinn's Lunar Gear, crafting new weapons and armor for the entire party, and managing character progression through skill trees. This system provides a clear and satisfying sense of growth, making the often repetitive resource gathering feel somewhat rewarding as your team visibly strengthens. However, it doesn't entirely overcome the monotony of the core gameplay loop. The narrative of Arc of Alchemist opens with a captivating premise, immediately drawing players into a dying world and a desperate, hopeful quest. Quinn is portrayed as a strong, empathetic, and determined leader, bearing the immense burden of humanity's survival. Her interactions with her diverse squad members, each with their own unique motivations for joining the expedition, offer glimpses into their individual personalities, backstories, and the camaraderie that forms amidst their shared struggle. Themes of sacrifice, unwavering companionship, and the very definition of a new beginning are explored, adding layers of human emotion to the otherwise grim situation. However, the execution of the story is often uneven and struggles to maintain consistent momentum. Key plot developments and significant revelations can feel rushed or occur abruptly, lacking sufficient build-up or emotional weight. Conversely, certain sections of the game can drag considerably, punctuated by repetitive gameplay stretches and only brief infrequent story beats. This inconsistent pacing disrupts immersion and can make it difficult for players to remain fully invested in the overarching mystery. Critical lore and revelations about the past civilization, the nature of the great power, and the cataclysms that ravaged the world are frequently delivered through static text logs found in the environment or through sudden exposition-heavy cutscenes. This method, while informative, feels detached and less impactful than if the lore were more organically integrated into the gameplay, environmental storytelling, or dynamic character interactions. Furthermore, several intriguing characters are introduced with promising backstories, but then they quickly recede into the background, leaving their potential for deeper development frustratingly underdeveloped. While the central mystery provides a strong hook, the fragmented delivery and occasional lack of emotional playout prevent Arc of Alchemist from crafting a truly memorable or impactful narrative. Visually, Arc of Alchemist presents a conflicting image. On one hand, it strongly adheres to Compile Heart's signature stylized anime aesthetic. The character models for Quinn and her companions and many of the antagonists are charmingly designed, featuring expressive faces and distinct outfits that clearly convey their personalities and roles within the expedition. The vibrant colors used for character highlights, elemental effects, and UI elements provide a welcome contrast against the otherwise muted desert palette. These character designs are arguably one of the game's stronger artistic points, particularly for fans familiar with the developer's previous works. However, the environments themselves tell a vastly different story. The Desert of Beginnings, while conceptually appropriate for a desolate world, often feels generally barren due to technical limitations rather than artistic intent. The landscapes, primarily consisting of vast stretches of sand, generic rocky outcrops, and dilapidated ruins, suffer from a significant lack of variety and detail. The textures appear flat, low resolution, and highly repetitive, contributing to a pervasive sense of visual monotony throughout the game's numerous segmented maps. The overall graphical fidelity feels noticeably dated for a PlayStation 4 title, often looking more akin to an early PlayStation 3 game or a late PlayStation 2 era game, particularly its border environmental presentation. Additionally, object pop-in where environmental elements and even enemies suddenly materialize into view is a frequent occurrence, further disrupting the visual flow and immersion. The game's sound design, while functional enough to convey basic information, is largely unremarkable and fails to leave a lasting impression. Combat and sound effects, the clang of weapons and the whoosh of elemental attacks, the explosions of defeated mechanical foes are present and serve their basic purpose, but they lack any significant punch, distinction, or impactful feedback. The soundtrack, comprised of a mixed atmospheric pieces for exploration and slightly more energetic tracks for combat, generally manages to set an appropriate mood for different situations. However, few, if any, musical compositions truly stand stand out or become memorable earworms that you'd find yourself humming after playing. They tend to fade into the background, providing an adequate auditory backdrop without generally elevating the experience. The game features original Japanese audio, catering to the player experience, with no English dub available, which I'm fine with. I don't mind it. You know how I feel about the Japanese being better than English, so that's fine with me. Overall, the audio presentation, much like the visuals, feels serviceable rather than exceptional, contributing to the game's atmosphere without significantly enhancing it. But right now, before we even give this game a score here, we need to go to our TTBurger positives and negatives. For the TTBurger positives, intriguing post-apocalyptic premise. The core concept of humanity's last stand in a desolate desert searching for a mythical power is conceptually strong. Charming character designs adheres to Kapower's heart's signature anime aesthetic with well-designed and expressive character models. Japanese voice setting only. The presence of the original Japanese audio caters to player preferences, offering an authentic experience. Now for the TTBurger negatives. Crippling, repetitive, and unengaging combat. Despite the elemental system, combat quickly devolves into a mindless, repetitive chore, lacking any real tactical depth and severely hampered by simplistic enemy patterns and broken AI. Frustratingly clunky targeting and ineffective AI companions, persistent targeting issues, and allies who constantly act irrationally or fail to use skills effectively necessitate maddeningly constant micromanagement, completely destroying any sense of combat flow. Monotonous, visually outdated, and barren environments. The desert beginnings is consistently underwhelming, plagued by repetitive, low-resolution textures, an extreme lack of environmental variety, and jarring object pop-in, making prolonged exploration an actively painful and boring grind. Poorly paced, fragmented, and massively underdeveloped story. The narrative suffers from wildly inconsistent pacing, with key plot points feeling rushed and many intriguing characters and lore elements introduced but left frustratingly unexplored, leading to a disjointed and utterly unfulfilling story experience. Completely underutilized elemental system exploration. Environmental puzzles are laughably simplistic and infrequent, acting as trivial roadblocks rather than engaging challenges, entirely failing to leverage the Lunar Gear's potential. Zero replayability. The core gameplay loop is so uncompelling that there is no incentive whatsoever to revisit the game after completion, with a glaring lack of substantial side content or meaningful post-game activities. Extremely limited enemy variety. The game recycles a tiny pool of enemy types with predictable dull attack patterns, making every encounter feel like a carbon copy of the last. Constant technical performance issues, persistent frame rate dips, and pervasive object pop-in severely detract from any potential for immersion and constantly remind the player of the game's utterly unpolished state. Utterly unremarkable sound design. The soundtrack is entirely forgettable, failing to elevate potentially poignant or dramatic scenes, and sound effects lack any impactful feedback. In conclusion, Arc of Alchemist arrives on the PlayStation 4 with a compelling premise and clear aspirations to deliver a tactical exploration RPG set in a desolate post-apocalyptic world. However, the game ultimately falls significantly short of its promising aspirations due to substantial execution flaws in its core mechanics. It's a game with a good heart that struggles to escape the overwhelming standards of its own limitations, ultimately becoming a curious niche tile rather than a memorable highlight in the vast JRPG landscape. If you want to go JRPG, go play the Neptunia games, go play the Italia games. Hell, go play Death and Request. There's plenty there, and even Witch and Hard Night, a game that I didn't like at all, which I don't have anymore, but if I ever buy it again, I will talk about it. Overall, that's what I gotta say about Arc of Alchemist. It's a game that could have been so much better if more time care never went into it. Because of the complaints I have with this game, I have to take off a lot of points here. I really wanted to give this game a chance and I thought it was going to be good, but that wasn't the case here at all, and because of this, Arc of Alchemist, I can only give it a score of 3 out of 10. It had the potential to be good, but too many problems and other issues plagued it for sure, and that's what happened here. And that's the end of episode 305 of my TTBurger game reviews. Stay tuned for episode 306. What we covered then, find out next, but all I gotta say is Tony. Peace and out, have everything, see you all in the next episode. Take care, everybody.
You onto Riverlaw is about no knobby cards and showing how winds, cities spinning in glorious spins, pixels crashing adventure.